The Bainbridge Island Museum of Art proudly presents the Within Earshot Jazz Festival, and tonight's program, The Future of Jazz, panel discussion with moderator Brian Kirk and panelists Carol Handley, John Bishop, and Marina Albero, broadcast live from Seattle's historic Washington Hall. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded ancestral land of the Duwamish and Coast Salish peoples past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. This year, Within Earshot Jazz Festival is a celebration of jazz music featuring concerts and programs from October 9th to the 30th. Visit www.biartmuseum.org for a full schedule of Within Earshot Jazz Festival events. RSVP on Within Earshot event pages and we'll send you reminders and direct performance links prior to each program. Within Earshot is a PRISM program of BIMA. PRISM is a cultural catalyst delivering intimate curated performances, presentations, and cultural celebrations that explore the personal connection between artist and audience. BIMA can only make this year's festival free thanks to the support of these very generous sponsors: Real Logic's Sotheby's, the City of Bainbridge Island, Earshot Jazz, KNKX 88.5, and museum supporter Steve Davis. Thank you. Built in 1908 by the Danish Brotherhood, Washington Hall has anchored Seattle's diverse Squire Park neighborhood in the Central District for over 110 years, serving as a hub for social and cultural activities for a broad ethnic community. The Hall is the site of Seattle's very first documented jazz performance, which featured Miss Lillian Smith's jazz band benefit performance for the Seattle chapter of the NAACP on June 10, 1918. Other legendary jazz, blues, gospel, and R&B artists, including Duke Ellington and the Duke Ellington Orchestra, Billie Holiday, Lightnin' Hopkins, Mahalia Jackson, and Fats Domino, are among the Hall's most famous jazz, blues, and R&B performers. Located at 153 14th Avenue in Seattle's Squire Park neighborhood, Washington Hall is a historic community space and performance hall that is home to 206 Zulu, Hidmo, and Voices Rising. Without further ado, brought to you live from the historic Washington Hall, we are thrilled to present the Future of Jazz panel discussion.
Good, good. Well, I'm John Bishop. I've been a drummer in Seattle for 40 years, I guess, and then I've done a bunch of stuff related to playing drums and just trying to make a career. So I started designing CD covers about 25 years ago, and that turned into Origin Records, which is now that I run with Matt Jorgensen, and we've got about 650 records, 300 artists, and that keeps me busy. And we've got the Ballard Jazz Festival that we've been doing for 18 years. It's taking a little hiatus for unknown reasons.
Fantastic. I'd like to introduce Ms.
And I'm a piano player. I also play hammered dulcimer and vibes. Born in Barcelona and moved to Seattle about 6 years ago, where I've been playing with a bunch of beautiful musicians I'm learning from. So I feel really, really grateful to this town, this city, and especially the musicians and music community.
Fantastic. And now Miss Carol Handley.
So I come into the music industry through
and have moved in some different directions. I'm actually playing vibes now, like Marina, and so it's kind of fun to pick up on my vibe roots that I played before. Also, my dad's a famous jazz musician out of the Indianapolis area. He's in the Indianapolis Hall of Fame because he was with Wes Montgomery. They all grew up together in Indianapolis. So got a big background in jazz, and looking forward to our conversation today about what we're going to be discussing, where jazz is going to go. So let me start out with just asking the panel, what has it been like for you during the pandemic, and how have you adapted to the changing landscape? We start with Carol.
Oh my, yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? The technology is king right now, and technology is driving a lot of what we are doing. A lot of us are learning brand new technology, technology we didn't know that we would be learning, and of course also learning that you don't have a big enough digital department or IT department or the infrastructure that you need for those things. So we're all scrambling and learning together, I think. The broadcast industry has been the same. We are trying to protect each other, protect our staff. And so everybody is currently working out of their homes. That was a bit of a scramble for anybody who may be like a podcaster and decided, or maybe you were thinking about becoming a podcaster and then wanted to take your idea and now's the time you're going to be that podcaster. Well, you couldn't get a decent podcasting microphone to save your life because everybody in the country all at once decided that they wanted to be a podcaster. So it was a trick to, get us all set up from home and make sure that everybody was safe. But amazingly, out of our entire news and music operation, we have just about 3 people on a daily basis that are in the studio out of 2 different locations. And then we have studios that we've quarantined. So that's been a lot of what we've been doing during the pandemic time, is just figuring out our technology, how to continue to make things sound better, how to present musicians, which we did a session recently with Marina, and decide and figure out who our partners are and where it makes sense for us to be the technicians, and where it makes sense for others, like we're doing here today, who really know what they're doing, to take on that part so that you can continue to stay in your creative brain rather than having to go into your technical brain. So that's a lot of what I've been doing during the pandemic so far. That and gardening, frankly, for the sanity.
Marina, how's it going for you?
Well, it's been kind of the same in a way. My living room is now a TV studio of sorts. Lucky enough, my son, who is 18, he started doing some sound engineering last year. And today, as we speak, my house, it's a professional, small TV and recording studio. Since day one, when I saw that pandemic coming, I already envisioned and knew that the live streaming was going to be probably the only way. I did expect it for this to be long, but of course not that long. I'm not happy with the experience of the live streaming as the only format, but I'm really grateful to that. From Zoom to YouTube to whatever platform you want to use, it's been a beautiful way to keep connected. And I've done it with my family in Spain just to keep in touch, but also with the audience. And I've been always looking, even in my concerts, I always thought that the concert experience, it's a little bit too tight, where the audience is, waiting for me to do my thing, and I just show up and they applaud me. So even if it's with little details, I always wanted some kind of feedback and interaction with the audience. And even during pandemic, that's what I realized that I needed. I needed connection, not only what I need is my spotlight and the audience applauding me. No, I really need the connection. So my live streams that are not every week, I don't overload, but when I do them, I always try to establish a connection, even with my teaching on Zoom, start checking on people. How are you doing? How was your day, your week? Mental health has been really challenging for me. And I'm a really stable person in these terms. I'm do pretty well. But I think whenever I have the opportunity of do a live stream, or all I want to do is connecting and be together, or at least feel people that they can reach out and they can even write me an email. I believe in the word or the expression, we are in this together. And it's not only the pandemic. I mean, I'm nothing by myself. I need you. I need humans. And thanks technology, let's try to connect beyond like tearing down the screens, not only like, oh yeah, webinar, oh yeah, concert online. Let's try to interact a little bit. I'm here for that. So that's what I've been trying, and it's been hard.
Yeah, it has been difficult. John?
Yeah, and that's been the interesting thing with all us musicians. There's no gigs, and it's real easy to think we're all just sitting at home crying our eyes out and stuff. The interesting thing is seeing the activity and how everybody dove in, and it actually makes sense because making music has never been an easy racket. That's for sure. I mean, if Basie's band could go through the South in the 50s, we can certainly get through this.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, I think, we're resilient and, we're figuring it out. But what I noticed for myself is that, how much just the basics, leaving the house, going to a club, seeing people, playing music, getting response back, and then hanging out. And just basics. Jazz is a social music, and I'm hoping that on the other side of this, that's what we come away with is like, okay, concerts are great, festivals are great, all that stuff, but let's get back to clubs. Let's get back to mixing it up, realizing that this is it's a music of process, and let's all dive into that process again and get back to making stuff. For the record label thing, though, what's shocking is we're cranking. I think there's a lot of great music out right now. I'm working on like 8 different projects at this point, and it's just like everybody's. We have a lot of conversations with artists where it's, I don't know what to do. Is this a good time? And it's just kind of, I don't know. Let's go for it. Let's make some records. Let's just keep moving. So for me, doing a record label, being at home, it's actually been a really productive and positive time amongst all the crap.
Good point. That's good to know. Yeah, for me as an educator, adapting to the technology that we've incorporated into our curriculum has really been fruitful because I teach electronic music. My jazz program was taken away from me about 6 years ago by a dean that was looking at bottom line butts in the seats, and there's no butts in the seats, so we cut it. So I've had to adapt to the modern time and work with students that rapper artists, vocalists, musicians who have basically make music out of the computer. So I teach electronic music online, and it's been pretty fruitful because I've got a lot of students who are really doing well in that area. I do miss jazz ensemble. I mean, I just miss the interaction with people, being in the room, playing music together, and learning and growing and reading and having fun, And so that's been the challenge for me is to find a balance between the virtual world or electronic music world and my own music enjoyment. So it's one of those things that we're all challenged with right now, and hopefully post-pandemic, like John said, we can all get together, hang out, listen to cats play, rah, thank you, have a taste or two, and then, continue the saga. So
That's why we do this.
that's why we do it, exactly. So in regards to the future of jazz, guys, what is your advice to students and young people pursuing a career in music, navigating their way through the current and complicated state of our world? Start with John.
Diligence.
What would you be advice to students in this current pandemic?
Well, for like talking about, like this has never been easy. So it's actually an easier time for a person who wants to be a musician because you go into your room and lock the door and play, and you just that's what it's all about.
Good point.
I mean, there's with all these music programs and the codification of jazz theory and techniques and all that stuff, there's this illusion that, okay, I've got to be in a school, I've got to go through this process in order to come out the other side as a musician. And but it's your bedroom, it's your imagination. You if you don't have it in your head, if you don't have the imaginations and the sounds in your head, it's never going to come out an instrument, no matter how good your technique is. So, get in your room, play, do.
In other words, it's a good time to get in the shed. Huh?
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if you want to be a musician, just do it. Don't listen to any advice unless it's someone you really respect or like their work or how they do it. I say this because nobody, as you said, nobody is going to take anything away from you. It's all the opposite. How can we actually express ourselves from what we have and what we live? And there's no school that is going to make you or not a musician. It's all about you. What we have nowadays is all the information. I've been playing during quarantine with Chick Corea because he's been doing live streams. So I just put, my iPad on and play with him. It's something that I could have never done before. So all these musicians at home, what is happening is that you can actually connect with them easier than ever. There's no management office, there's no concert, there's no security. Now people are at home willing to share with you guys all what we know. I think that the future of jazz goes through actually share and be yourself. So just do these couple things, wherever it takes you. You want to go there, go. You want to go to college, go. You want to go to India and learn that music. There's no one pathway to be a musician. So just go for it, share, and be yourself. And shedding a lot of practicing.
Practice.
Yeah.
From a non-musician, person, but has been involved in the years past in like jam sessions and hosting jam sessions and bringing artists together in creating environments for them to be able to come together and learn from each other, because that's so much about what you're saying is just do it. Just grab your instrument, go in a room and, start practicing so that you can have at least some kind of skill set to go into that kind of environment. Interestingly, I think that with, younger people, period, so obviously musicians as well, this technology is still allowing for some of that. Because like you're saying, you're playing with Chick Corea on, and, he doesn't know you're playing with him, but you're playing with him. And
I can put that on my bio. He cannot put that on
he has a lot of time on his hands too. He just put out a double live album solo, so he's been just doing that in his own living room, I think. But for other artists too, to be able to connect in that Zoom environment or whatever, these guys, younger musicians, know their technology. So I think there's still opportunity to kind of have jam sessions. The thing about, of course, a club jam session is that you're playing with people you may not have ever met. And you wouldn't know where maybe to find
it's
them.
really hard on real time. There is a website that I haven't tried, but friends in Seattle do, the Jam Kazam. You know about that one? Yes. I haven't tried that one. You have tried? Brian, tell us. Is that possible, really?
Yeah.
Can you jam live?
Jam Kazam. Yeah, it's good.
I haven't tried that one.
It's called Jam Kazam, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because my camera, it's too far away from the piano. It's in my... So you have to do it through the cable. And my computer, it's too far away from the piano. I've never tried it. But other than that, it's hard jamming. I cannot really jam online because the lack of the sound, the time lag, doesn't allow it.
Yeah, the latency factor is something I guess they're working on right now. There's a beta testing on a new form of Zoom, or a new edition of Zoom, which is going to lessen the latency, and perhaps we'll be able to play, together better.
And that may be more kind of current rather than future, depending on how far in the future we're talking about.
Future.
We're talking about the next year to 18 months, or down the road.
Yes. So speaking of future, there's a dwindling interest in jazz as a viable means of making a living. How can we try to bring more people into the art form, guys? Carol, what do you think?
First of all, I'd like to. So I was going to say, is it a viable living? Has it ever been a viable living?
It's dwindling.
I see, as we were sort of talking before. This life is especially as a musician, performing musician, if that's your main source of income, it's always been a tough one. Yes. And there's a lot of great talent. And so it's cutting through that, I think. That probably becomes a very big challenge. So is the question more, how do you get people interested in jazz specifically, or how do we just...
Yeah, how do we bring people more? We were talking about when we first came in, how do we get more people involved in jazz,
listening to jazz?
listening to jazz, of course.
Well, of course, we were talking about the high school, that even the middle school, high school level, and I think that something that I know that a lot of classics are obviously in the curriculum. The history is in the curriculum. All of that is good. I had some experience early in my career where I was at a radio station and there were kids who were performing in a competition, and they happened to be at a high school a couple blocks away, and there's downtime in these competitions, right? So these kids came over and they said, "Oh, we hear you're a jazz station." I said, "Oh, tell me about what you're playing." They go, "Oh, we don't care." And I'm like, "What do you mean you don't care?" It's like, "Well, we're playing big band." And I was like, "You're not interested in that?" And so, yeah, we don't like jazz is how that translated. And so I said, "Well, come in the studio with me." And so, I pulled out some Mahavishnu Orchestra, and I pulled out some, other things. I think Al DeMille had just put out an album with Bill Bruford on drums, and Tony Levin was playing a Chapman stick. And I brought him in the studio, and I cranked it up, and they went, "This is jazz," kind of thing. So long and short of that to me is, from an educational standpoint, if they're bored, are they being able to hear all the aspects of the music? I'm not in that curriculum world, so I don't know what's going on, and I'm sure it's different everywhere. I'd say we're really lucky here in the Northwest. Obviously, we have such a great history with our bands here locally, and we also have like Centrum, which has a wonderful program in the summertime. But I think it's just making sure that people get to hear the full variety, because you cannot make people like what they do not like. And so, you got to find out what they like and try to speak to them through a funnel that they can relate to, because in jazz, it slices every way. And there's always a style within the genre that somebody can find that speaks to them and will be that window that lets them in. But if you come from a place of being historically accurate about a thing, to me, is you miss a huge opportunity to turn not only future musicians onto a genre that they may be thrilled to learn about, but a listening audience that will go out and support them, buy their music, go hear them live, and turn them on to it as well. So for me, it's always about the variety.
Good point. Marina?
Well, of course, we all know that education is a magical word here. Kids that are born, when I was born in 1979 in Barcelona, I remember kids throwing the papers of the candy on the floor. We didn't have education. And when I was growing up, I was 3 or 4, they had these big, because we come from a dictatorship, so they started putting garbage cans and telling us, my grandma would tell me, no, we wait and we throw it to the garbage can. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. We have garbage cans. We didn't have so many. With that, I mean, my brother, he never threw paper on the floor. Never crossed his mind. He already had the garbage cans. So education is key. But I also would say, and that's not my thinking, I believe it's him, the myth, on one of his lectures. He said that the best audience we can get as musicians are the amateur musicians. Nobody is gonna appreciate what you do more than somebody who is trying to do that. With that, I think that what I think about it is that we need a better or more ready audience. They need to know more about music. They need to know more about how music is made and how hard it is. In one hand, I think music is one of the less risky hobbies people can have, because even when you make a big, huge mistake, no butterflies are harmed. So sometimes I'm a little bit surprised how people, especially I work a lot with classical musicians that want to improvise, and they feel like super self-conscious about improvising or not knowing what to play. My biggest aim would be bringing music back to people's hands. Like, you don't need to be a professional to actually play a little bit piano. And everybody's baking now. So making music is kind of the same. I think that, okay, recordings, radios, all these beautiful resources kind of took music away because then everybody could hear these beautiful professional musicians, these nerds, these crazy people like myself that we spend hours practicing one bar. And then probably we all have this huge big respect towards music that kind of say, I don't know that, I'm just sitting down, you play, you're the one. I think now that we have the pandemic, one of the beautiful things, and again, Chick Corea comes to my mind because he's one of the, I would say, most hardworking musicians without having to be. So I admire that capacity of work. So that thing about bringing music back to people's hands, bringing the basics, it's gonna then make them more ready to listen to more complicated music. Because if you analyze, like from the theory perspective, the music that sells lots of records is becoming more and more simple over the years. So my theory is because again, music is there and audience is here. We need to kind of make music that space where everybody shares, and then there's these freaks that are professional musicians that they don't do it because they're gonna make any money. It's because it's a call, it's a passion, I don't know how to call it, it's a need. We are gonna go and do a symphony or put together a record or a festival, but music should be, under my humble opinion, something for everybody to enjoy and play and try and have instruments at home. And I think the pandemic, again, I'm shifting my approach, and I want for people on my next concert this Sunday, I'm inviting people to play with me. And I'm gonna give them a couple of guidelines. So take a keyboard and we're gonna make music together. And you know what? You're gonna be in your living room, so nobody's gonna know. So again, I think that maybe, taking music back to people's hands might probably get a better audience in the future. Of course, with education. Of course, I mean, I live in one of the best cities I've seen in the world with music education in public schools. I know part of it is because of Seattle public schools and Merced Island public schools and Bellevue, but I also know it's because of the families. So hey, me traveling around the world, I would say Seattle has a pretty good musical health, but we should do much more to make it better, and Seattle should become one of the musical hubs that it actually is. Super humble, but you guys have a lot of history here, and that's because there is that. Let's make it bigger. Let's bring music back to people.
Well, that's it. We need to reopen the doors to let people in. Like I think it's this cultural immaturity thing we've been going through the last 30 years, where it's like, okay, I want to. What I just heard today, somebody died, and their $9 million estate is going to the opera, the symphony, the museum. It's like, okay, great. So you have these things that cost $100 to get into to see. It's like we need to get into micro grants. We need to get into performance spaces that don't require big investments, that are just where musicians can go to make music again. You were talking about Mahavishnu and all these kind of things, where we're thinking of like, okay, how do we get people to like this music? It's like nobody asked for Mahavishnu to play Mahavishnu. They came up with it, and they gave it to us, and then we were drawn into it. Same with Coltrane and Bird, and nobody asked him to lead Billy Eckstein's band. He said, this is what I do, this is what I'm doing. And the environment that was created, people who had clubs and things said, come on in and play. And so we need to have those places where people say, come on in, play. This is a gathering place. Let's have music. It costs $5 to get in. Let's just do this. And I think that's what Seattle, it's not a secret. 52nd Street in New York, Chicago, and their clubs, you can see when you have clubs, when you have activity, when you have hotel bars with the piano player, when you have that kind of stuff, people say, oh, I like music. There. It's that easy. You just have to have it. Just have to have it without it being a $150 evening or whatever. You have to have different ways for them to get in.
Yeah, and we also need to use the technology that we know to bring the young people into jazz. I've used my electronic music production class as a way to get the rappers in the back door to get them in. So I'll turn them on to like a blues, and I'll say, I want you to do a mashup. I want you to take this mashup. I want you to put it in a garage band. I want you to mash up a blues artist of your choice. I usually give them like Gatemouth Brown or Muddy Waters, and I have them do a mashup. Put your own backbeat to it, and it has to be a solo for 8 bars, and then it has to be juxtaposed with a vocal and another artist for 8 bars. So I give them the criteria, and they say, man, I never heard of Muddy Waters. Man, he's really dope, you know. Or we'll talk about one guy did Miles. He mashed up Miles with Herbie, right? And so that way, I think we're starting to get the attention of like instrumental, you know, the young folks liking instrumental music and really wanting to learn how to do that. So I looked up, and you know, somebody was taking guitar lessons the next quarter, or bass lessons, or you know, hey, you ain't gotta study drums with you. Oh, yeah, we can do that. Post-pandemic, not a problem. But so I think, you know, I call it. I remember touring with Lou Donaldson, and we would go to Germany and places like this. So it was this is in the 90s. So it was a discotheque. So we were going, I was like, man, we're getting ready to play jazz in here, straight ahead, Lou Donaldson. But it was a discotheque. Everybody's dancing, lights are going on, right? And we're like opening for that. So we do our thing, and they're standing there looking at us, and we're going for it, and you know, straight ahead, bop. And then they hit the discotheque hits, and they stayed, you know. They stayed for that. So that was one of the things that I got inspired by with Lou, is like bring them through the back door, you know. Give the people what they want. That's what my wife says, and a whole bunch of other people that I've been around. Give the people what they want. So I think jazz musicians really need to open up and repertoire and not be so close-minded and trying to do the historical art form that shows that we're virtuosos, but literally get the people involved. Get them like grooving, dancing, grooving. Even if it's like I talked to Lou about it. He said, you know, I always played this groove music because that's how I made a living, right? And then I would go out and play bebop, and that was the thing. But the groove music got the people buying my records. So it's just, you know, something that we can piggyback on, is that we can use the technology that we have now, maybe create some things that the young people will want to dive into.
Yeah, not only technology, but you said it's key to me, and it's to me definition of jazz, coming from where I come and accepting that it's a completely American black art form, but I'm from Europe, and you know, the way we receive jazz over there, it's such a welcoming space for any kind of root music to just jump in and play your own, wherever, flamenco, Brazilian, Cuban music, everything goes well with jazz. Jazz is one of the most democratic spaces.
Correct.
Okay, then we say, I like how you mentioned historical form, because what happens with jazz is that now it's more than 100 years old, which that to me becomes to be a little bit of classical music. I've been playing classical music and early music for many years, and a little bit of a deception that I had with jazz is that it was taught and in the same way as classical music. And so then to me that kind of lost a little bit of the magic, because I was like, oh, I thought that was improvisation, not playing bebop as they were playing Bert and Dizzy, because I'll never play like they did, and I'm not in the 1950s. So these sort of situations to me make me understand that what I like about jazz, what I understand by jazz, is the most welcoming space for everyone to mingle and share and get amazed by each other. And in that note, mixing it with what's going on nowadays, it's so vital. If you think about a jazz musician top of your head, I'm sure you're gonna have one of these names that they never stick on the same style, that they kept going, they kept growing, they kept mixing, they kept trying out, they went beyond anyone. So jazz to me means something that keeps moving, and we can play swing and cool and hard bop, but you know, names like Speranza Spaulding, that by the way Speranza means hope. I mean, that girl, when because now she's a woman completely, but the first thing I saw her, I'm like, wow, thank you. for bringing that joy, that freshness, this groove. So yes, that kind of things I think it's important, Brian. Modern technology, bringing the young people and their taste to jazz.
Yeah, it's one of the things I was listening to Terry Lynn Carrington, who was using Casa Overall from Seattle, the spoken word on the record, and I was turning some people onto it, some jazz purists, and they were like, "Oh yeah, okay, I kind of dig that. I really don't like rap and hip hop, but I kind of like what they're saying, you know." So it's something that we're doing. We've got to reach them in that manner. John?
Well, basically, that's I guess the one thing with all of this is letting musicians do what they do and creating situations where musicians can do what they do. That's where you get the next stage. That's where you get the next thing. And also, that's what excites audiences too, because when audiences can step into the process, it's energizing. It's because you never know what's going to come out. I mean, I think right now we've got, with a lot of the concerts and festivals, you're spending a lot of money and you want to see a finished product. So it's got to be good and it's got to be the finished product. When you had something like the Keith Jarrett Trio would come into a thing, it was not a finished product ever, and they were just carrying on with their process. Yet they were still walking away with $90,000 that night. So it's completely viable as a business, and it's also process. It's that great old, that's jazz. It's musicians doing what they do.
When you're in the room and you're feeling it from an audience perspective, I mean, I'm not a player, and man, live, you're in that room and it happens and it's special and you knew it, and you knew it when it was happening, or you know it when it's happening, and it's exciting, and to be able to feel the music.
That's a commercial product too, isn't it? Yeah. You can make that into that's something I want to look forward to when I go and spend money. Yeah. I want to see something happen.
Yeah.
Piggyback what you were talking about, we need to bring jazz into places like Washington Hall, Century Ballroom again, where young people can go,
True.
Community centers,
churches, not 21 and over, you mean?
Churches, where they can go and really experience jazz again.
Right.
I did a lot of in New York. We did a lot of the jazz mobiles, where they had the mobile trailer go into Harlem and play for the people. The fire hydrants are wide open in the summer. They're running through them, right? We're swinging, having a ball, Also, they have the young concert series in the Bronx early in the morning, to go in. So we kind of need that again. We need to get the schools. Jazz musicians have to go into the schools and say, look, this is our music, like right here, like Ornette Coleman said, this is our music, and this is really an experience that when you see it live, when you feel it live, you will enjoy it. And I've noticed when we did those concerts in Seattle, Mercer Middle School and other places, they really, enjoy it and really got into it. And, it helps everybody, helps the situation. So, hey guys, Seattle has one of the highest concentrations of jazz musicians in the country. Toulouse is closed, New Orleans is closed, and many other small venues are struggling since the shutdown. So what is so important about jazz, about this art form, that we should try so hard to fight for its future?
One thing I was thinking about on this, bear with me.
Sure.
70s, 80s, early 90s, Seattle was it was churning. You missed out on it. It was great.
I came here in 1992, but I couldn't go to clubs.
Yeah.
With the clubs and
so much
everything.
stuff going on.
Too young.
There were people that were any level. You could be at any level, and you could be active. You could be doing things. We had Diane Scher would be a young girl who came along who was great, and then she's doing the White House. You had this opportunity. You had things going on, and so we did it. It was possible, and then and now we are a tech metropolis. And I'm going to say that it was the clubs and it was that underground, that creative thing of those 20, 30 years that got us to that. Go ahead, argue with me. So there's no reason you can't go back to being that kind of town where there's just this energy, this creative energy.
Yeah, the rent.
And
It's
people,
the rent makes it harder for me as a jazz musician.
yeah.
Because as I don't know if it's true, but it is in Spain, jazz musicians today are getting paid the same as 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, tell me the rent 25 years ago in Seattle, because
the
that's,
situation now is not real. So
I think you could find some square footage right now.
Well, this is where that thing of micro grants, and it's like, if some organization is taking in $20 million in a year to run, why can't they take 100,000, 200,000, and help pay rent for some smaller thing?
I wouldn't even call it help pay rent, because this is all everything so downsizing. The language is used with musicians, donations, tip jar, rents. I feel like a lazy person, and when they describe these sort of situations, and I always say I work every day and I only get paid some days. This is the difference, but I work every day with or without money. I like what you say. I would just instead would change the language, and instead of making it downsizing for the musician, I would say, hey tech guys, so there's a cultural thing called art that humans have been expressing this way for centuries when there were no software yet. And that's where software comes from, because it's really, really creative, doing all these designs. But I would say we are responsible for the culture and the music and the art that we're leaving behind us. So I think these companies should have just as a norm, a percentage or something for the cultural life of this city and this region. And I think it's up to them. I don't think I have to beg for that. I think that should be something normal. There's a part that goes to art, because art are not business usually. So we need to maintain that, or maybe in 1,000 years, the only thing that will be left will be La Macarena from Spain. And I will be really sad, because that's the more copies that we sold. So it's our responsibility what's going to be there in 100 years, especially people who has power, money, archives, and big hard drives to store all that.
But it's true. I think, John, a little bit about what you're talking about in terms of the history and how we got here was the idea that there was a lot of small pockets in different places all throughout the city that had various things going on, various parts of the community presenting jazz all over the city. And whether it was, like you were talking about earlier, even just like bars, like a hotel bar in Seattle. There were several at the time, and you could pop in and out of a lot of places and hear jazz that they were supporting, they were booking, and that you could hear. But then Tula's, and a great example of Tula's, was they couldn't afford to stay in the space or find a space when they had to move out that would be central in Seattle, where the community that was used to going to see them could afford it. Yeah, I do think we're going to have some real estate available here soon, but it's a big piece of it.
Deal. I mean, like playing in Europe, where there's a club you'll be going to play in, and you come walking up to it, and right next door is a Gucci store. So you're going Gucci store, jazz club. I don't believe they're paying the same rent. There's something going on here, subsidies or whatever, but they saw it as an advantage to have a Gucci store and a jazz club. Like the Gucci store wasn't bothered by that. They were still paying market rates. So I think you can have everything mixed together in a thriving place if you just have infrastructure paid for.
Well,
and I would say that KNKX is a great example, guys. You just raised $500,000 in 5 days. So this there again, I do believe that Seattle has that kind of basis.
Oh, we definitely have that kind
but
of
I don't know
base.
how
It's
you
really
guys move all that. How do you do it? You need to tell us.
A very big microphone is basically how that works. And I mean, we're a split format. We have the news side and we have information as well as the music. I would like to think, and I know that a very strong case can be made for the fact that when we were put in a position of having to be buying ourselves, the community stepped up, and a lot of that community was very strong through the music side. And so it's really also, educating the audience, and we've done a fair amount of that through this pandemic, where we've had links on our website about how musicians can be supported, how to buy their music versus, or if you're going to stream it, where to stream it, different ways in which you can try to get revenue directly to the artist with the shortest amount of in between. And to also educate people about the fact that musicians do not make money off of streaming platforms. That there are very few people making a little bit of money, and then a lot of people making no money. So as direct to the artist as we can go to help support this art form and keep it vibrant is very important. So when you go hear your favorite group, when you have the opportunity to in a club, buy the merch, buy the CD. They'd be happy to sign it, or whatever, download or
now
whatever.
It's Bandcamp, I would say Bandcamp for independent artists, or Patreon, where people can, and of course local, any local artist or local record label like Origin. I mean,
Go to the website.
go straight there. Try to avoid iTunes, Spotify, and all these things. Go to the source as much as you can.
I understand the convenience, and it certainly is, on-demand, Siri, and everybody else. When
Yeah.
you say,
Alexa,
play mine.
Siri,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, lost my language. It's very convenient for people. The upside of it is that you can go on to playlists, get started, be listening to something, and you might get turned on to an artist you didn't know anything about, because it sort of can take you down an algorithm road, and those things can be interesting. They are for me sometimes. I'll dig in and say, I want to learn what's going on in this genre. I'll pull up a couple artists that I know will take me down that road, and you can find and discover that way, which I like very much. But so it can be convenient, but I also appreciate that the artists aren't making any money off of that platform. So the more direct, the better in terms of supporting the art form.
Listening to a panel discussion of the future of jazz at Washington Hall, sponsored by Bainbridge Island Music of Art. We have John Bishop, Marina Albero, Carol Handley, and myself, Brian Kirk. We got a few more minutes. I'd like to wrap up with a couple of questions for you guys. Talk about some of the most important, or some of the important and interesting movement in the jazz world today. Who's making waves and giving us some new innovation? What's that, John?
8 cool projects, you said, 300 artists. Come on, there's not one.
I've never really thought about music that way, or because there's so many different things that can excite me. Like when I can hear just any record and just go, oh, that brings out this in my brain. So, I'm not really. I think what excites me most about like doing a record label and doing the stuff I do, playing gigs and all that stuff, is just knowing that there's potential magic out there, and then coming upon it. And that can comes, like personalities or the music or the combination of players or whatever. But I don't think I've ever really focused on that. I just need, except Coltrane and certain things.
Yeah, I've never been a fangirl either. I kind of know that everybody's a human. So I don't have anybody like, woo. And at the same time, I have many people that I'm amazed every day. My biggest teachers, though, or at least where I get inspiration, usually are really close to me. Because, I don't know, Addie, she's 7. She comes with a new composition every lesson. We started in January. We went over to Zoom really quickly, and I thought, well, this is it. How are we gonna learn? And so seeing kids, how they are fearless, that's what I want to be as a jazz musician. I want to feel like a child sitting on the piano and not really knowing what's going to happen. And I don't know if that's okay or not for other people, but I'm not doing this to be okay or not. It's a need being a musician. So I like seeing people brave, smiling, having fun. Whenever I see that on stage, oh my gosh, I want to go to my instrument and practice. So yes, I just want to see people having a lot of fun. I want good vibes, and if we have to be blue, I want it to be real as well. So whatever feels genuine, and that's why kids usually strike me so often. They don't fake it. Sorry.
That's an impressive 7-year-old.
Oh yeah. Then I'll tell you who is that because he's a musician. I don't want to go public. Maybe I don't have. But it's been a big responsibility for me because that is a musician and amazing. She's my weekly inspiration. One of them.
I would say that from my angle, I receive about 575 recordings or so a year, 600 maybe.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. So
You're welcome.
I'm sorry.
You're welcome.
You send 50% of
So
this.
you're welcome. Yeah, there's a few origins in there, I gotta say. There's a lot of music being made in this genre, and it's a huge genre, so we know that. And so from the creative side, I think it's alive and well. Trying to sort through that for presentation is a tough one. Because you're not able to listen to 575 releases all the way through and also do everything else you do to create a radio station. So you do a lot of really fast listening. So you can kind of see trends. And so I can say that, from my experience, mainstream jazz, bop, hard bop, whatever, it's all, the whole spectrum is alive and well. And that there are a lot of people now, getting into the world of mixing in hip hop and mixing in other groove beats and a lot of electronica, Americana. There are a lot of different sounds and flavors that are coming into the mix. I think that has always been the case with jazz. I think it will always continue to be the case with jazz. From my experience, being able to hear a lot of stuff, and the other thing that I find through my lens as a broadcaster is that there are a lot more women musicians right now that I am seeing come through and really holding their own and making a name for themselves. Bria Skonberg and Roxy Cross and Hiromi and just so many fabulous, fantastic female artists. In my broadcast career, I can say that usually there were 3 or 4 musicians. There were a lot of great vocalists. There always have been a lot of great vocalists who've been able to be at the forefront, but not as many women. And more women groups and more women who are producing and more women who are really active in getting the attention that they deserve, getting some great press, and because they're fantastic musicians, and it doesn't, it shouldn't matter. They're fantastic musicians. So it's a pleasure to be able to present that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, we were talking about the Seattle music education scene here, and the big bands are full of women that really play the heck out saxophone. The whole women section of trumpets or trombones, it's pretty amazing. Seattle Jazz Ed has the all-women's big band that made the Ellington finals, the Ellington Festival's finals, so big ups to them. So we're almost out of time for this panel discussion, the future of jazz. Do you guys have any closing remarks you want to make in terms of where we're going to go with this music?
I would just thank you, and thanks Earshot for doing such a fantastic job every year, putting together a wonderful festival, an eclectic, amazing festival, where people get turned on to a lot of new artists and people that they haven't been aware of, and for braving it this year in the COVID world and doing it the way they are. It's a tough thing to pull off, and I applaud.
Fantastic. Marina?
I want to thank everyone here. I respect you guys so much. It's really honoring being with you. And it's I want to make an extension again to the city and the community, how I felt and I feel in this town, writing my music and performing my music and being welcomed by the jazz family. This is bigger than I would ever expected. So personally speaking, although I'm struggling, I'm counting my blessings and I'm staying in Seattle because I feel loved, I feel inspired. The musicians level around me, it's outstanding. Please take care of all that, okay? Because I can go back to my mom's, but I probably will because it's amazing over there. But Seattle has magic. Seattle has all this nature, all this different air that you guys create here. Thank you for letting me stay here. And thank you, Jesse, for putting this panel together and all the Within Festival that I've been watching, beautiful from Bainbridge. Go to the museum. When I go there, I go back home and then I start writing music. To me, seeing art and seeing paintings translates into music. So go there and then tell me what your experience. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Hunter, everyone. Thank you.
Everything Marina just said, I'm just so thankful to be out at the house right now, and really
Good
looking
point.
forward to seeing everybody once we're out of this. You know, after the last plague, remember it? After the last
Yeah,
one
1918.
was the Roaring '20s. So I have high hopes for all of us after this is all over with. Let's have a good time, shall we? Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you to John Bishop, Carol Handley, Marina Albero for joining us this evening. Special thanks to Bainbridge Island Museum of Art, the Washington Hall, Earshot Jazz for champion jazz all month long. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in. It's been my pleasure to be the moderator with such great panelists.
Thank you, Brian.
And keep it swinging.